It's the Unnamed Indie Comic Show with Skip and Ash, featuring firepower and East and West. Comic Show with Skip and Ash, featuring firepower and East and West. It's the Unnamed Indie place for independent comic fandom. It's the Unnamed Indie Comic Show with Skip and Ash, featuring firepower and East and West. Comic Show with Skip and Ash, featuring firepower and East and West. It's the Unnamed Indie place for independent comic fandom. It's the Unnamed Indie Comic Show with Skip and Ash, featuring firepower and East and West.
Three, two, one. What is going on, peoples? It is Wednesday evening, and it's the odd one or the even. I don't know. It's the other one where we do the show, the Unnamed Indie Comic Show, because we still don't have a name. Joining me, as always, is the host of the show, Skip. How you doing tonight?
Doing pretty good. We get to talk about some indie comics, which is always something I feel I have like bottled up inside for, 2 weeks until we do this show. And then I get to, spend 90 minutes or so gushing over the books that I've been reading. So I'm excited to get to talk about that. How are you tonight, Ash?
Doing all right. Read some good book. I didn't read a lot, but I read some really good stuff. So I'm very happy on that. It's always a downer when you read bad books and you're just like, or even if they're just mediocre, you're just like, nah. But when you read really good stuff, you're like, oh yeah, this is why I like this hobby. So
Absolutely.
what are you drinking tonight?
I'm staying consistent for those watching and listening live, and for our people that are watching later or listening via the podcast. Staying consistent for y'all. I got my bottle of a red potion of the Gatorade variety. We're going with the fruit uppercut, aka the fruit punch, tonight to keep the vocal cords nice and limber so we can about these books. But what about you, my friend? What are you sipping on over there?
I am drinking a fresh brewed iced tea, and yeah, it's always, man, when the tea is fresh. Most iced tea is not fresh, but when you can, it's so delicious. Black tea.
Love black tea.
It is my favorite. Although a Japanese green tea is good from time to time too. Anyways,
I do enjoy a green tea here and there. A good tea that I don't hear many people talk about, and I've brought it up before, I believe, but I'm just gonna throw it back out there. If you have not had Genmai tea, check it out. It was like a peasant's tea, and it's made up of like rices and herbs and all this other stuff. But it is a very interesting collection, and it's a very earthy, almost like a woody kind of.
Genmai, how do you spell that? Genmai?
You got it. Yep.
Look at
Nailed
that.
it on the first try. Genmai. Yeah.
Is it
check
one
it out.
word or
It's,
two words?
From what I remember, it is one word.
All right.
Very interesting tea.
I'll look into that. Always on the lookout for, more delicious teas. Hi to everyone that's in the audience. We're streaming live on YouTubers. We're the YouTubers onto YouTubes. It's also is available on podcast format, so some of you might have it just listening to audio, and if you are, we thank you. It's this show. I guess I'll just give the little wrap up here of what this is about in case this is anyone's first time tuning in. This is just a fan show. It's not really. We're not here to really think critically and analyze books in the, I mean, we kind of do when it's good. That's always fun to like maybe discuss why it's so great, but we're not really here to talk about books that aren't so good. Well, there's many other avenues to cover that in. But here it's just really to celebrate a couple of our, indie books in general, and then also a couple of our favorites, one of which is Firepower. That's a book we go into depth every issue. This show airs live every other week. And so that's what we're going to be talking about tonight is our feature book. But before we get into that, I'd like to mention some of the books that we're reading, maybe a new discovery or just an old, tried and true. We're just loving every issue. We just like to talk about it every time. So, Skip, what books are on your list for today's show?
I'm going to start off with a book that I had heard about before and kind of seen, but I hadn't totally been, let's say I hadn't been turned on to some titles from Matt Kindt that really, let's say, put me over the top as someone who's becoming a fan of his books. But we're going to talk about Bang. Matt Kindt and Wilfredo Torres came out, if I remember correctly, on Dark Horse. I really appreciate Dark Horse for just like kind of letting Matt Kindt do whatever he wants over there. Like, oh, Matt Kindt, you got another idea? Like, yeah, we'll pay you to put your book out through us. But very cool. It's kind of like a spy espionage type thing. It was it's interesting that you meet the protagonist and immediately, they are, people are in hot pursuit, and there is this briefcase that he's trying to get. He eventually does, and then immediately, very early on in the story, he gets taken out, and an agent double crosses him, and then you come to meet another agent who you start to follow along, and that agent is trying to gain possession of what the previous spy lost, as well as try to find out. Well, they kind of know who did it, but try to find out the reasons why they murdered that person. And in the midst of all this, you get introduced to this author that people are also guessing might have something to do with the briefcase and possibly with the agents kind of turning on other agents. And there's a very nice and interesting twist in the midst of all of it that, of course, I will not reveal. But Matt Kindt does a very good job, between books like this and the Fear Case, that I probably would have kept reading if Tyler Jenkins' art was just a little tighter on the Fear Case. But it's these mysterious stories that that have these little twists and leave you wondering, what is this thing? And Matt Kindt does a great job of that. And what I like about this book in particular is it's more action driven. So we just get a little more action with our mystery. And Wilfredo Torres is very simple lines, along with I forget who it was that colored it. It's Neon. I think it was Neon Young color this. If I remember correctly, that's Neon Kim. If I remember correctly, I'm gonna try to double check this, but I believe that is Matt Wilson's wife.
Oh,
Famous colorist, award-winning colorist, Eisner winner, multi-Eisner winner, Matt Wilson. I believe that's his wife. I know that she colors books because he had told me one time of like a few that she colored, but I believe she colored this one. So no wonder why the colors are so awesome. If you got, it's you and Matt Kindt or Matt Wilson sitting side by side, some of that stuff's got to rub off, but she definitely has her own chops, so it's a very fun book. And anybody who was questioning jumping into it, I only read issue number 1, but it was so strong. And the premise it's not too convoluted, so I can't see it falling off a cliff. I'm definitely going to. At 5 stars for issue number 2. There you go. Just read it, people.
Yeah, this book, I remember when it came out, and it was under the radar, just a little indie book, and all of a sudden everyone's talking about like, oh, Bang, yeah, this new book, Bang, it's great, man. I'm loving it. Can't wait till the next issue. And I was like, Bang, what's the deal with Bang? And so I looked into it a little bit, and I was like, oh, yeah, it's Matt Kent. I like Matt Kent. He's one of the top writers. And then, oh, it's a James Bond kind of style spy story. Like, oh, that's like one of my favorite genres. Matt Kent, I got to get this book. And I looked all over. I could not find it. Nope, super demand for it. and I was like, I guess I'm waiting for the trade. So, yeah, I definitely want to get into this book very much. It's only 5 issues. This is a kind of a bummer though. Like when this is kind of why we do the show, because we want to talk about books and get them, people to hear about them, because it sucks for books like this that can be great and no one knows about it and it slips under the radar. Or like in my case, I would have bought these books, but I have this, anal retentive thing. I was like, I don't want to own issues 2 through 5. It's like it'd be missing number 1, and then I'll have to get it, right? And then my luck, it'll be like $50 or something stupid to get the. And I was like, nah, I can't. My collector's OCD won't allow me. So definitely want to check this out. I'm eager to hear when you read more of it. If it stays up to your that lofty expectation.
Lofty.
Yeah, there we go.
And digital, for our digital readers out there, $1.99, an issue through Comixology. So, man, can't beat that for $10. You can read the whole series, and
yeah, that might be a way to go.
Mm-hmm.
I don't expect this is gonna be a high collector's item, so I don't necessarily worry about. I like owning physical books when I feel like I'm collecting something. But when it's just I'm purely getting it for the story, then a digital's fine for me. Like, especially if it's at a good price. I won't pay physical price for them, because then I might as well just get the physicals. But if you're gonna give me a discount so I can enjoy the story, that's all I can ask for. Exactly. You guys in the chat too, by all means, put out whatever books you in the past couple weeks are reading. That you want to share attention to. We'd like to hear about them. Now, I am reading, this is a great graphics Comixology, but I'm showing these graphics up on here for those of you who are watching live. Comixology has a Comixology original, and it's all just no art. It's like, come on, for the new issues. Here's some art for the old issues. This is called Snow Angels. And this is a book that's only available digitally, unfortunately. However, if you have the Comixology Unlimited membership, you can read every issue for free as they come out. Or if you refuse to buy the Comixology Unlimited membership, but you want to read the book, you can get it for $2.99, which is less than the price of a physical book, the date it comes out. And this is a series I am in love with. I have never read a Comixology original. Most of the originals that are on the list, I just look at them and I go, that does not look like it's for me. But this series is tight. And I say that in this slang vernacular, as cool, but also in the literal sense. This is some of the tightest plotting in a comic book. This is Jeff Lemire showing that he is one of the true comic professionals. He understands how to tell a serialized story that's, spanning multiple issues to tell this story, but also how each issue should kind of be its own. I don't want to say like a full 3-act structure story. That's not really the case, but it kind of does have its beginning and end, and every issue leaves you with some sort of resolution to the subplot of the moment, and then introduces you at the end of it to oh, here's the new subplot. And you're like, oh, darn it, gotta wait next month. And then you read it, and then they kind of resolve that subplot and then move on. And it never just feels like the book just, stops. You're like, wait a minute, where, so it's definitely broken up for individual read like that, which is great. And it keeps me wanting more. I know I talk about this a lot, but, it keeps coming out. And this is one of my top indie books. And a lot of people aren't even going to be aware of it because it doesn't appear on the shelf at their local comic book store. There is a possibility this will come out physically. There's been a few Comixology originals that have seen like reprint in a physical trade. I don't know. I'm gonna maybe try to reach out to Jeff Lemire and say, yo, give us a nice physical printing of this, because I love it. And I'm not even a huge fan of Jacques, who does the art, although I do like his covers. He's really strong on composition, but the detail of his illustration is not what I really like. But it kind of fits this book because it's kind of a horror thriller story, and the lack of detail kind of helps with that feeling. So it works for me. I'm loving this book. It just keeps going places, and I can't talk too much about where it goes because it spoils it. And this book really changes over time. Like after the third issue, it's a whole new direction. And next issue, if I said anything about, like, say, issue 6, that would ruin, not ruin, but it would take away a lot of the reveals of 5, 4, 3, like these issues before it, that you had no idea that the book would eventually get. Anyways, that's Snow Angels. You have a Comixology Unlimited account, don't you, Skip?
This is correct.
This is a book I would hope you might give a try sometime when you get through your massive pile of books that I know you probably have to read.
Indeed. Yep. I still have my eye on it. I still do.
It's only 10 issues. It's only gonna be 10 issues. It's not a huge, lengthy investment. But Jeff Lemire, man. What about you, man? What other books are you?
Another one that I read. It's interesting because Ice Cream Man is, you can pick up any individual issue and you get a full story out of it. You don't have to have read any other issues before, although it does help if you do, because it enriches the experience. I have read basically at this point 1 through 19, and then 23, 24, and 25. But I just recently read 19, and my gosh, I mean, I was just expecting to go into Ice Cream Man and just say, hey, oh, that one's 25. So it was number 19 that I had just read. And I'm like, hey, 25 came out. I loved 25. It was great. It was an oversized issue. Fantastic. They, again, I was just like, they nail it every time. They get it right every time. And I was going into 19 like, I just read 25, and 25 was awesome. I just expect to read an Ice Cream Man comic and just love it. And I almost cried at the end of this book. Like, it looks very quirky, and it looks very tropey and gimmicky. And it is, but it works. Like, and it works so well. I almost put it off for a little while because I was like, this looks like a little bit of a task because I'm going to be going through this motif the entire time. But the motif totally falls away, and you don't even notice it after the second page. And you just continue to go through it. And it goes through the phases of this character's life. Like, through the not a premise, but let's say through the form of a ghost, and you go all the way through, and it gets so deep. And I don't even know how to describe the cycle, because I've never seen a cycle like this. But it's not like where you start off at the beginning and you like end at the beginning. You kind of start off at like I don't know, you start off at some odd point. Let's say 33% of the guy's life, or let's say 30% of the kid's life, and then how it comes back around and loops back around is genius. And not only just the idea and the concept is mind-blowing, more than having your mind blown, you have your heart filled. And there's another part of the story that also cycles back around in its own mini loop, and it just adds to the beauty of it. And it went from being like this creepy, like weird, like why is this kid going around like acting like a ghost, and why are these instructions telling the kid how to be a ghost, to ultimately, I don't want to say where, like, what it ends up, because even that wouldn't give it away. No, I could tell you the whole thing and it wouldn't give it away. You just have to read it. Like, I have not experienced. I've read all these Ice Cream Man comics, and I still hadn't experienced something like that. It's mind blowing. So just again, W. Maxwell Prince. And I finally read issue 5 too. Side story. Finally read issue 5 of King of Nowhere, which is another W. Maxwell Prince story, totally different. And I'm just like, how much range do you have? You wrote a book like just as off kilter, but totally separate. And then I come and I read this, and I'm like, where does the genius begin and end with this guy? So anyway, Ice Cream Man number 19. I'm late to the party on this one, but if y'all have not read it, you could skip all the other ones and just go and grab it for $1.99 digitally, or good luck finding a physical copy, because these things are very hard to find. And if you have a heart, you better put two hands over it. It might jump out your chest.
I gotta get onto this book. I feel like I'm gonna love this book, and it's weird because, and I'm glad that we talk about books like this, because this is a book I definitely judge by the cover, and I look at it and go, like, let me scroll down here. Here's some covers, like. It's called Ice Cream Man, and there's like an old 50s style ice cream man holding a cone. Like, you're just like, and it's all these pastels and all this stuff. And, you know, I'm old school kind of Marvel geek boy. Like, give me some Wolverine comics, you know, or like, and I see this and I'm like, lame. But I know I shouldn't do that, because I have yet to hear a single soul even say this book is mediocre, much less bad. Like, not one person is like, meh, Ice Cream Man. Like, everyone is like, yeah, Ice Cream Man, you know? And I'm like, all right. And then your enthusiasm about the book all the time, constantly reminding me. So I keep saying it. My problem is probably similar to yours. I just have all these books in my to-read pile that I'm like, oh, right. You know, I've got so much books to read. But this is so much on my radar. I think the fact that I can jump in anytime helps. So maybe I'll just do that. Maybe I'll just like jump in on a new issue and just be like, let's just start here and then go backwards, you know, when I feel like it, or, you know. And that's another thing too. Once I get hooked into something, then I'll totally binge. And that's part of my fear, is like, oh, I still got Invincible to tackle, and I still got like, oh, you know, I don't know.
Absolutely. But and it's that, I just want to say one more thing about it. This book, every time I read one of these issues, like, no issue has been the same. Some have been similar, but no issue has been the same. And this book is a constant reminder in the front of my head. Don't tell me what comics can't be. Because W. Maxwell Prince has already given us, just with this series alone, and he's written others, 25 different ways that comics can totally be and work. It's almost like,
right,
you know, 25 ways to write 25 different comics, and they're all great. So I mean, he wrote a freaking comic that you can read forwards and backwards.
That's crazy. So anyway, just as a mention here, on Comixology, for anyone who's listening, the first issue is completely free. They're just giving it away. You don't need unlimited. You can also read it on unlimited. It's always weird to me when it's like, you read it on unlimited, or it's just free, like, right. No matter what. Okay. But so yeah, I recommend pick stuff up, try new things. I know a lot of people I hear all the time still, you know, people like, I'm just into the Marvel and the DC, the superhero stuff. You know, I think it was Zach had recently just said that on our Discord, you know, and I totally relate to that. And you don't have to give up superheroes. Like, this is not a case of just try something new, you know, like, expand your horizons, keep the superhero books, and then, you know, every once in a while dabble with your, you know, your Mistress Ice Cream Man on the side.
Yeah. Exactly. What about you? What was another book that caught your eye?
Another book I'm really into, and this is the end of the first arc, so it made a splash, is the Noctera by your favorite writer, Snot Rider.
Not Rider.
Snot Rider. I'm really enjoying this. I'm a big world building guy, so if you can give me stories, it's part of the reason I got into comics. Really, like Marvel and DC are just both big giant world building, examples. But in the indie comics, when you can also build a world, like movies. Some of my favorite movies are like Star Wars, The Matrix, Lord of the Rings, like all good movies in their own right, but also that world building, Blade Runner, when you give me more than just a good story, it's just bonus. And so Noctera is really got that part of me really interested. And I don't have the problem with Scott Snyder that some people do. So, I do realize that writing styles don't always appeal to everyone. Tony S. Daniel's art is fantastic. He's absolutely one of the best comic artists in the business. I don't think he's really being utilized as well in this style of story that Scott's telling, because he's a capes kind of person. You can tell, like he draws the human body very pleasing, and you want to see him
anatomy.
Yeah, and you want to see him drawing characters in skin tight clothes with cool action poses. And this is kind of a horror book with characters running around in the dark. Like, right. And you're just like, yeah, but they tried to give this main character Val a skin tight suit just to have an excuse. But it's really this, what's going on in this world? Why is it all gone dark? And why is everyone turning into these things called shades? And, some people, you're starting to find out as the world expands, like there's people kind of behind it. This might not just be a big accident. So there's that sort of thing. And this final issue, which I'm all caught up on, kind of sets the ball in motion. It kind of like gets that whole first act kind of done. And now we're on to go do, like, we just discovered something big and we dealt with a major villain, and now we're going to go on and into bigger things. So I don't know, I'm just speculating here. I expect this will probably go on hiatus for a couple months, just to give the artist a break. One of the cool things about indie comics, guys, is if you like the artist, guess what? They stay on the book. Almost, for the most part. Things happen, but that it's not like, oh, they drew the first 2 issues and then bait and switch with the cheapo guy. No. Tony S. Daniel is a part owner of this book, right? It's his bag. He's going to be on it. So if you like that, if you like the writing, you get that consistency. So the bad thing is when they need a break, if he gets a little bit behind in the book or just wants to take a family vacation or something, they don't have a fill-in artist. So sometimes you got to wait a little bit. But if you do that, I think that's a good, healthy thing, honestly, with the indies. I hope this becomes a thing. Do an arc, take 2 months off, come back, refreshed, do another arc, bang, 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 I would much rather have that than inconsistency in the book or rushing things or, So have I won you over? Are you going to start reading Noctera?
Oh man, I wish. You know what? If every issue, like either if not the cover, but like the first page on the inside was Scott Snyder just like taking pictures with his kids, I'd totally buy it, because I just love how he's such like just a normal dude who just like loves his family.
Right.
So like I would probably buy it just for that, but Scott, I can't.
All right. Well, everyone's got their own cup of tea that they prefer. So what other teas are you drinking?
Oh my gosh. The sweetest tea. HR goes vocal. Thank you so much for recommending this comic to me and having me get in on the ground floor on the issue number 1. It intrigued me, and it is officially my favorite series of the year. Ram V, Felipe Andrade, The Many Deaths of Layla Starr. It concluded with issue number 5, and my gosh, man, like, goodness gracious, how this story just looped around. And you could kind of see it coming,
Mm-hmm.
but not the exact way that it finished.
Right.
And once what you saw coming occurs, what you get within the interaction and the climax, it we talk about what comics could be. Sometimes we even go as far as to say what comics should be, but I am going to be a little more open with it and inviting. I'm going to say books like this show us what this medium can be. And what it can be is some of the most human, relatable, inspiring, endearing, sad, somber, but one of the things that we like to highlight that art can provide to us as a species is the human condition and the state of the human condition. And this book nails it incredibly. Ram V, I mean, he just has this touch. Like, he has this way of looking at life. You can get that from creators. You can see how they look at life by how they tell some of their stories. Doesn't mean they're going to be a great person, doesn't mean they're going to be a horrible person, but they are people that are tapped into the thing that connects a lot of us. And man, how this story ends.
Sounds like I need to
immediately wanted to read it all over again. It was just so touching and masterfully done.
Sounds like I need to dive on this. This has also been one of those things on my radar, but it was one of those ones I looked at the cover and I was like, Ram V is probably good. It's probably well written. Just doesn't look like my thing. And at the end of the day, I only got so much of a budget. I only got so many comics that I can find time to read. And so the unfortunate nature of it all is, and I'm sure everyone else deals with this in their own way, is that you just have to make choices and go, well, that one doesn't make the cut. And sometimes the things that don't make the cut are the ones you come back to later and you finally do. And you're like, why didn't someone tell me about this? So yeah, this is something I'm going to try. I'm going to try really hard to read this series before the next episode, maybe. And, well, I don't want to make any promises because I might hate it. I don't think I will, but yeah. So I mean,
it's a possibility. Even the covers. I'm looking at the covers now, and I did manage to get all A's. I did get all cover A's, but my favorites were actually a lot of the foil covers that they did. But looking at the covers now, especially all together after I've read them all, like I'm looking at the story through the covers and just like seeing the significance of what each cover means. Because we talked about covers recently, I believe, and how they don't all one of the main things that obviously a cover is supposed to do is attract the eye to get the person to inquire, right? And then from there, hopefully they crack open the pages, see something inside. A lot of people these days, not that they judge a book by this cover, but it is art within itself. So you could just say, I want to own that art in my collection. I'm willing to pay $5 just for that cover alone. Hopefully I enjoy the story. And I'm not going to say anything is wrong with that. I definitely have plenty of comics where I'm like, I buy the cover because it's one of my favorite artists. Cool. But in this particular case, these covers are far more meaningful than you could realize. And after you read each issue, you can go back and you can look at the cover and say, oh, I can see that's significant. But if you read the whole story and then you come back and you look at those covers, you get
Oh,
That
that's
feeling
sweet.
is so much just from the covers alone.
That's sweet. I think, honestly, I think cover art is becoming a lost art for a lot of people. And that what you just said brings me encouragement. Like, I really want to check this out now because, this is probably more true in the mainstream comics, but it's same thing with the indies. It's just oftentimes to sell books. I mean, and then go, yeah, duh, Ash, we're just going to try to sell books. I mean, I don't mean like, hey, this is we're trying to get you to pick this book off the shelf and buy it, but I mean like where we're like, oh look, it's we just got the Aliens license, so now every Marvel character has an Aliens cover, right? That sort of thing, like gimmicky sell books.
Yeah.
And look, gimmicks have their place, but when the gimmick becomes the priority, nowadays so many covers are just like, hey, like Captain America, let's just put Alex Ross on every Captain America cover so he can paint Captain America. We haven't, a million times we've seen, but the book itself, it has nothing to do with the book, and sure, maybe you want to buy the book because you like that cover. I don't know. I really appreciate, like, if you go back in like Bronze Age and before, any books really from the 80s and back, that cover was significant to what was inside the book. Mm-hmm. It was meant to be appealing and get you to want to like grab and open it. But when you read the book, you could go back and see the cover. And sometimes it was fun to see like how they misled you. Like a really good cover artist could kind of draw what happened in the book, but did it in like a red herring kind of way. So you thought it was going to go one way, but it actually went the other. Anyways, right. I love that. I love significance. I love going back, and looking at classic covers, maybe 30 years ago that I bought on the shelf, and I can look and go, and I remember the book because the cover was so significant.
Exactly.
So anyways, this is a series. Just, what? It's because of the enthusiasm. Like I talked about Ice Cream Man, your enthusiasm and everyone else. Was it who was it? HR? I think, yeah, HR.
Yeah, HR.
It was the chat. Other people like just talking about this book. It's infectious. When you feel the excitement that they like, oh, they're really into it. You're like, I want that experience. I want to feel like, maybe this book's going to do it for me too. So I want to jump on board. So yeah, I'm going to definitely try to read this.
I'm going to tell you this. I was really trying to get to FedEx like before today. But you already have a copy of this book.
Oh.
So
yeah.
At least number one.
Oh, I'm gonna have to check some mailings. Okay.
Yeah, definitely. But yes, this book will win awards. That's the last thing I'm gonna say. It's gonna win Eisners, and it has earned it, and that's all I'll say. But Ash, is there one more comic that you read that you want to share?
I did, and this is a little bit of a double-edged sword. And by the way, I've been turning Skip up. I saw some comments that Skip was a little low, so I have increased his volume. Hopefully that helps out. And you guys, by all the means, comments in the chat if things are sounding weird. I can't hear the way you hear. So for me, this is the double-edged sword. This book came to an end. I want to say it was maybe last week. And I got to read it all. I was admittedly a little bit behind because I didn't know when it was ending, but I knew it was ending reasonably soon. Like I knew it wasn't going to go 32 issues like its predecessor, Descender. I'm sorry. For those listening, this is the Ascender by Jeff Lemire. And so I was a little bit behind, and I was also doing this weird experiment where I was reading Descender kind of in conjunction, where I'd read Ascender and then go to Descender and do this weird back and forth kind of weaving the stories. So I had Descender sort of to finish up because I didn't want to finish Descender until like all of Ascender was, you know what I'm saying? Like I kind of wanted there to be some surprise left. I was So now that it's all said and done, and I've read all of Descender and all of Ascender, I want to say I'm not disappointed at all. It does feel, and this could just be me projecting into it because I know it. I was expecting it to go 32 issues, and it only went 18. So it does feel like it was a little bit rushed, a little bit. But again, I can't even be sure. It just, the pacing at the end was so fast, but in a kind of a good way. Like, it worked. Like,
Right.
those last 4 issues are just like boom, 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 like roller coaster, just things coming that have been building, not in just this series, but Descender. And that's really important to mention because previously I had always said, oh yeah, you could just pick up Ascender and read it. You don't even need to read Descender, which technically is true. That's still technically true. And I was like, yeah, then you could go back and read Descender later, which you can do. However, and I did not know this, and I was kind of misled by what Jeff Lemire had said about this series when he started it. Descender ends with sort of the beginning of Ascender. Like, at the end of that book, they're like, this story will continue in Ascender, and I don't want to say anything for like spoiling things, but it is meant to be a connection, which I kind of always said, but before I thought it was like a big 10-year gap, which it is, and I thought it was a little bit more like the Star Wars prequels versus the original trilogy, how they're loosely connected, but they're not exactly the same characters, and that's still mostly true. But now, having read the whole thing and done my weird experiments, you definitely could read Ascender. You would enjoy it. And you would get some things out of it by not having read Descender, because there would be some surprises, like you wouldn't know who this character was or that character or what they're, and so you'd get to find out.
Okay.
But I think now read it the whole thing, because for the last issue, I actually there's 2 covers, and I got both of them. The A cover is Ascender 18, and the B cover is Descender number 50. Because the final issue of this is the true final issue of Descender. Like, see, like it's a double final issue. It wraps everything up. Because Descender doesn't fully end. It's like,
right.
You're like, oh, weird. But when you read this, you get the finale, And again, I've long compared this book to Star Wars, and Star Wars has a similar thing too. Like in the first Star Wars movie, Luke blows up the Death Star, but he doesn't end the Empire, right? Like there's still many things going on. Descender is kind of that way too. It's like they reach an ending of something, but there's still all these other unanswered things going on. Whereas the end of this, it ends it all. It's like Return of the Jedi. It's like the Emperor's dead. Yes, and for those of you who are like, but Ash, put your finger down. He's dead. Whatever happened in episode 9, that was a dream. It was all nightmare sequence. And it's all over. And the Ewoks have their celebration. This kind of has a similar, very strong feel of that. Loved it. It made me choke up. There's some really strong emotional character moments of family coming together, the heroes. These are like, I want to say like normal people. I mean, they're not superheroes. It's like Star Wars. You got a farm boy who ends up saving you got the main character here, Mila. She's this little girl, and she's got this strange adventure that she gets on, and by the end of it, what she ends up having to go through and do, it's just amazing. There's really strong dichotomy between technology and magic, which is a slight spoiler thing here, but Descender is pure technology. That's what it's about. It's about robots and not being compatible with humans. It's the trope of like like Matrix or Terminator, like the rise of the machines. Like, oh no, we're all doomed because machines, they realize that man's enslaving them and they don't want to be enslaved anymore, or something like that. Descender is very much along those kind of lines. And then Ascender comes out and it's like, no, there's actually magic in the world and there's all this stuff and we've eradicated all robots. And now it's like the flip. It's like the yin and the yang. Like, and then by the end, it brings it all together. And there's some cool things that happen that I can't really talk about, that I want to save for. And those, like I said, those last several issues just gives you, but it pulls it all like from this story. And this is why I guess I'm going to bring this all home here. Why I think you should start with Descender, because the finale of this story brings loose threads from Descender together and gives you sort of the finale for that too. Whereas if you read this, you'll get a fun story and you can go back and read Descender, but you'll sort of have already gotten the end of it. And you're like, okay, so your miles may vary. Do what you want. The whole series is out now. I'm assuming this will eventually be available in the big deluxe hardcover. I have the 2 deluxe hardcovers for Descender. This will probably have 1 for this, so it'll be a nice sweet trilogy. And that's another thing too. At first I was like, it's like not as big. It's like not 32 issues, but this very much is a trilogy. Descender is parts 1 and 2, not just part 1. And I can't say why because that's a spoiler too, but there's basically an event that happens 3 times. And each time is like part 1, part 2, part 3. So when you read the whole story from 1 to 50, you'll see like, oh, and you can break the eras. Like this time it happened, and then this thing happened, and then this thing happened. And all right. Anyways, read this book. Nice. It's all Dustin Nguyen art. It's my favorite style of Jeff Lemire writing, which is all just about characters and pacing, which I think he does astoundingly well. It's nothing deep dive. Like you're not going to have any sort of metaphysical moments and existential thoughts. It's not that highbrow. It's just really quality, fun adventure with fun characters.
The art is so good. Like I started in Descender too, and I didn't go as far. It was my my best friend's favorite series, and he got them all. And the art was just incredible on it, like the watercolor kind of vibe and style and everything. Like Dustin Nguyen just did such a good job with that. And yeah, Jeff Lemire, he is like the pace master. He can hold down a story and move you along. Like, you know, he speeds you up usually at the right time, kind of slows you down at the right time. But yeah, I have a feeling because I tried Ascender and I couldn't stick with it because I'm not much of a, or I don't want to say I couldn't. I didn't stick with it that time. I'm not much of a magic person, but I am going to try to, I hope that if I go back through and I can get all the way through Descender, it will give me enough, motivation in the tank to just push past, what I ran into issue with in Ascender as far as the magic is concerned, and hopefully get to complete the whole arc like you did.
Yeah, the magic is not as pronounced as I might be making it seem. There is the main villain, which is the mother, and she's kind of the Emperor Palpatine analog. And she basically has like all the magic. That's why she's all powerful, because she's like consumed it all for herself. So there is magic, and she has a lot of it, but she's kind of the only one that has it. So it's not like a story full of magic and there's fairies and elves or anything like that. It's just more of, hey, robots are all gone, and there is this evil bad person that wants to kill us, and she's got powers. But it's not like stuff all over the place. So if you aren't, it's not throwing magic in your face every issue. It's not like that. Like I said, it's like more like Star Wars. It's like, hey, look, there's a Jedi. There's one guy who can do some things. Everyone else can't,
Right.
So yeah, I love this book, and it was kind of bittersweet, but getting to that end was so good. Like I put on some nice epic music and just sat with my iPad and was just grinning ear to ear, like just in getting those chills of like, yes, like those moments that have been building for 50 issues. So I love this. I'm sad that not everyone else may not be their cup of tea, but for anyone else that it is, reach out to me. I'll give you a virtual high five, because you and I are in the special cool kids club.
Indeed.
Uh,
Nice, man. Well, yeah, those are a lot of good books. Hopefully, the people out there that are listening, that are watching live, and we appreciate all of y'all, whether it's after the fact or whether you're live with us. Hopefully, some of these books that we recommend are ones that you've already heard of and you enjoy, and you can join in with us on that joy. Feel free to join Ash's Discord if you like. Come in and talk about comics with us there. But if you haven't heard of these and you have some bandwidth for some new books and you want some stuff that the creators really pour themselves into, and a lot of the times it ends up being their best work, or at least their most intimate, if you enjoy those creators, check out some of these books. They will really, you won't be sorry, that's for sure.
Amen to that. Now moving on to the second segment of the show. We got 3 segments. We'll try to get through this rather quickly here. Then we're going to get into the firepower geek fandom. Fan geeking? I don't even know what you call it. We're gonna gush over firepower.
Yep.
This is my thing where we just talk about new comics. What I do is I pull up League of Comic Geeks. I filter out all the Marvel and DC so they can go away. And this is basically everything that's independence. And this is all sorted by users of the site, how much they subscribe to the books. So it's not 100% accurate to how popular the book is, but there is some, you can take a little bit out of that. And so Skip and I will just kind of go through, see if things catch our eye, give you guys a chance in the chat to make any comments about books, like, oh yeah, that book or this or whatever. I like to we want to give more independent books some recognition or acknowledgement that we may not read them all, but we want to, you might be. So starting here, we just kind of go maybe line by line. Other than the books, obviously Layla's Star is one of the top books here. We talked about that pretty good, and we're going to talk about Firepower. Anything else stand out here?
Of course, Geiger. Issue 6 seems like it was the end of the story arc for that one. I did appreciate the end very much. It's funny because I had some of the most issues with this issue, but overall it still completely worked for me. So very happy with what Jeff Johns and Gary Frank were able to pull off with Geiger. And underneath our nose, boy, did they grow a very flourishing garden. So it seems like we'll be picking a lot more flowers out of the garden that Geiger started.
The Geiger Garden.
Geiger Garden.
I have not read the final issue of Geiger yet. This sucker's a beast. I got to say, I was at least very impressed with the physicality of this book. For those of you who may not have handled it or seen it or whatever, this book is, how many pages? We can look right here, see how many pages it is. It is 48 pages, so it's a double-size issue, but that cover is like thick cardstock.
Yeah.
And it just, the pages, like the quality, and I'm like, I was expecting this. If Marvel had made this book, I was like, this is going to be like $8.99.
Right.
Because DC's already doing it. One of their Batman books is like $7.99. This is like $4.99. I was like, thank you, Jeff. You're a cool cat, Very much happy with that. What happened to my... I did something.
1 week over.
Did I do 1 week?
To the left. Yeah.
No. This is the right week.
There we go.
Oh, weird.
That's where we were.
Weird. Okay. Oh yeah, because it pulled up because of today. This is not today's books. Right. So yeah, Undiscovered Country and We Only Find Them When They're Dead are 2 books I can recommend for sure. Obviously, Spawn 321. If you're a spawner, you're a spawn. You're a spawn guy. Like, I don't need to sell books for McFarlane. Undiscovered Country. The best way I can talk about this book is: did you like the show Lost, where weird stuff is happening and you don't know why, and you got a eclectic cast of characters that some of them you love, some of them you hate. they all have different motives and different things, and they're in an environment that doesn't make sense. And all that's what Undiscovered Country is like. It is really cool, I think. It's bizarre. It's just a fun book. And then We Only Find Them When They're Dead it's like space opera, but the art is very manga inspired, and the coloring is just eye-popping neon, like that works. It works for this book. Very much you can kind of see from the cover. What you see on the cover is what you're going to get in every panel. And it's this weird concept of like there's space gods that for some reason die, and they're like giant. They're like Galactus size, and they're just like, they find their bodies in space, and then they harvest them because like just like whale hunting, right? It's all the bodies of space gods are worth things. And so there's this group of space miners or harvesters or whatever that do this, and then it's strictly regulated and all this stuff. And if you violate any of the regulations, like even a hair, you'll get blasted out of space. And there's one crew who's got a thing where they're gonna pull off some job and like do something illegal. Anyways, I can't say too much about this book, and it's a lot of mystery going on there too. If you like the art, you're gonna either love this art or not. A lot of people do. I really am becoming a fan. Check this book out. It's Al Ewing. Next line, anything?
I did have on my pull list to get the one shot for Beauty. I didn't get too deep into the series, but I always appreciated the premise, which is really interesting. I was not able to grab it yet. It still is in there, but Beauty there. So there's a new STD going around. You sleep around, you catch this STD, you wake up the next morning, and you look younger and more beautiful than you did before. So you can just imagine people who are sleeping around on their spouses, they catch this one, they're not going to be able to hide these results. But it goes even deeper than that. It's very interesting. So I did plan on getting the one shot. I'm just gonna wait a while on it. That's all.
All right. I'm a little curious on Basilisk. Cullen Bunn has never been one of my favorites, so I didn't get super curious. I'm kind of waiting to see if it's one of those things that people start talking about or not. And then Black Hammer Reborn. But I really got to try Black Hammer sometime. I mean, I have tried it. I've read like the first trade, and it was decent, but it wasn't like blew me away. And I know people love this series, so I feel like I need to try more to see if I can, because it's what I want, superheroes.
Yeah.
But I think I know what you're going to talk about in this next line.
I think I'm going to surprise you, actually. So I am going to talk about what you think I'm going to talk about, but I'm going to talk about the other one first.
I didn't know you were a Magic fan.
Right.
I thought you said you didn't like Magic.
I tried to get into it.
Damn, I'm surprised.
Man, decks get expensive, man. That's all I'm gonna say. But Sweet Paprika by Mirka Andolfo, I ended up getting issue number 1, one of the second printings, and I haven't read a lot of Mirka Andolfo books, but I read like some of Unnatural, and I'm reading this. And she has a really I mean, obviously, like, there's all this sexy stuff that goes on in it. But even within that, she has a very interesting, like, way of it, like, introducing humor and like, of course, like, a lot of visual humor, not just dialogue oriented. Perfect, because she's also an artist. But, for a premise that I'm like, I don't really like appreciate the idea of the premise. Within the framework of the story, she does make it work. So I don't know if I'm going to keep reading it. Like I when I was done with issue number 1, I said, you know what? I am not against getting issue number 2. I didn't end up getting it yet, but if I get to a point where I'm like, okay, I'm current on my comics with the exception of my back issues, I may grab issue number 2. And then, of course, Bad Idea, the lot number 3. I haven't gotten a chance to read it yet, but my cousin, God bless his soul, he went down home to where I'm from, Monterey, one of the only shops that I know that carries it. around here it's 3 hours away. I found a shop that's an hour away. Haven't gone there yet, but he picked up all of my Bad Idea comics for me. So I got the Lot 1 and 2. I got Tankers 3. I got Monster Hunter Squad or Monster Killer Squad or whatever it's called. So I got a bunch of Bad Idea comics that I'll be diving into. But the art in the Lot, the art literally like bursts off the page. It is extremely vivid.
Wow.
So yeah, it's I mean, that's the thing about Bad Idea, you know, as inaccessible or not widely accessible as the books are, once you get your hands on it, you're like, I wish every comic looked, felt, and you know, and like basically like was worth my money like this, because this is the premium comics reading experience. These Bad Idea comics.
I'm still not 100% convinced these exist. I think these is like the Santa Claus of comics, and everyone's just telling me like, oh yeah. I have still never seen a physical copy of a Bad Idea comic, not one. So,
wow, that's so crazy because you were like in the comics mecca.
I know
one of them, but yeah, that's a trip. We gotta fix that. I might have to snag an extra copy of something and throw it your way.
Yeah, I had a watcher, actually very very nice, offered to send me one of the series, and I was like blown away. I was like, wow, that's really nice and thoughtful of you. And I was like, I can't accept, like that's like too generous. Like I was like, those books are hard to find. Like just, and I was like, but thank you. Like it meant so much to me that it was offered.
Indeed.
Yeah, it was, and that person knows who they are. So we'll just kind of blast. This is the unpopular book, so we can got 2 lines here. If anything, nothing's really standing out to me. Oh, except maybe this Lighthouse book. I am very curious about this Jules Verne's Lighthouse.
I hadn't heard of that one. Like anything in particular that was making it pop out to you?
It's what's his name, Brian Haberlin or whatever. He's like a sci-fi guy. So it's basically taking a Jules Verne story and sort of updating it.
Okay.
From what, this is how my take. I could be totally wrong. I haven't read it, but how I'm understanding it, it's taking that story and like modernizing it so that, you know, because Jules Verne wrote, I think, in the 30s. Like he's an old school writer, right? And he wrote like crazy sci-fi ideas, which are amazing for the time that he wrote them. But also when you look back 100 years later and go, yeah, technology didn't work out that way. You know, like that's not how physics works. And, you know, so you could take the stories still hold true. So I like that idea of like, let's tell this story, but like, let's fix the science. Let's make the setting, you know? So, and the artist is the same artist that did that other image book. Oh, I can't remember the name of it, but it had like the weird bird people or something. It was good art. So I like sci-fi. I'm a big sci-fi geek. You start showing spaceships in space, and I guess where else would you find them? But yeah, I'm curious.
Definitely. Me, of course, Pirate Queen. That was another one of the Bad Idea books that had just come out that I had gotten. I had recently, I haven't read a lot of Peter Milligan books, but I recently read God of Tremors, which was a one-shot that he did with Piotr Kowalski and my buddy Brad Sampson. Excuse me, Brad Simpson. I said Samson. Brad Simpson, and that was really good. So he got a Bad Idea book. I got it, and I'm going to be reading it. And the Red Sonja, this is Mirka Andolfo taking over Red Sonja. I think Mark Russell was doing the last run. So for those of you RTV that are into Red Sonja, you can definitely check out Mirka Andolfo's run on it and see if you enjoy that. And The Worst Dudes. My buddy Tony is drawing The Worst Dudes. We are Heat fans since my Sacramento Kings are so terrible. My East Coast team is the Miami Heat. Tony is out there in Florida. He has adopted me into the Heat family. And let me tell you, like, I am not one for super vulgar stuff, but Aubrey Sitterson, he takes like these 3 terrible people, and their dynamic between the characters is like, it's everything that you want from a comedy story, and it works so well, just the dynamics alone, that like, I guess Aubrey Sitterson, he's just very good at like vulgar jokes, because this is way better than all of the Kevin Smith humor that I used to enjoy when much younger. So the worst dudes, Dark Horse Comics, pretty solid, and then of course Monster Kill Squad. I want to read a Christos Gage comic that has nothing to do with Dan Slott. So thank you, bad idea. Oh, and one more, just because we're there. I am a Howard Chaykin stan. If there's one thing in comics that I stand for, I don't even stand for Hickman. When Hickman sucks, I say Hickman sucks, and that's very rare. But oh my gosh, I will read anything by Howard Chaykin, and I don't know what this weird effect he has over me is, but this Hey Kids Comics Volume 2, Profits and Loss, it's the most interesting way to tell a very niche part of comics book history through like this fiction story. So yeah, I so far I've been enjoying it. I didn't realize that there actually was a volume 1. I thought he was just joking around and threw that in the title. So I found volume 1, and I'll be going back and reading through that as well. So thank you.
That was a
Howard
series
Chaykin.
I would like to check out. It really piqued my interest, but I never got it. And so when this series came out,
it's
I was
very nerdy. It's like I mean, like you. Okay, we all love comics, right? Like we're here, so we love comics. But like to dig into this very specific part of comics history where it was like comics were losing their innocence and like growing, it's uber nerdy, but very fascinating.
nice. All right, I'm just kind of scrolling down slowly. This is where we kind of get to the indies of the indies.
Yeah, right.
I'm
That's a
not
good way to
seeing
describe
anyone
it.
make any comments about any of these books, but I'm sure someone's reading these books and loving them.
Someone's got to be, even if they're just getting review copies. Someone's reading.
I mean, I would. There's books I would read more of. Like if I just had more time and more money, I just really. Besides both of them, I just like we talked about before. You got to pick. Just like I don't see every movie that comes out or every TV show. Just you pick and you hope that you pick right.
Yeah.
So that wraps up, I think, the comics that came out. We won't go through the whole thing, but for today, it looks like Deadly Class is back.
Yes.
The Me You Love in the Dark, I'm very curious about because Middle West was really good, and this is the same creative team.
Yeah.
So, but some people said they didn't like the first book, so I'm like, oh, that's sad. Yeah.
Maze, Jeff Lemire, or Maze book.
Maze book? What? Who?
Jeff Lemire, Maze book, a new Jeff Lemire book, #1. Right.
Oh, this one right next to it,
Mm-hmm.
Maze book. And I'm like, huh? Yeah, that font is not jumping off the page. I'm like, what does that say?
Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah, Lemire's very hit or miss for me. When I love him, and then other times I'm like, okay, I'm not sure what you're doing there, Jeff, but that's fine. Yeah, you know what's a book too that I jumped on because you were kind of saying, I think you were saying you liked it, was that new Frank Cho book with the girls.
Oh yeah, Fight Girls. Yeah,
Fight Girls. That book is wild. But
Isn't it?
we'll have to save that. It didn't make my top 3 to talk about books, but yeah, that if you guys aren't, if Venkman was here, I would be like, Venkman, need to get this book. It's very interesting. It's like Hunger Games, but like more fun, I guess. Like
Yeah,
Hunger Games is a little dark.
definitely. It is.
And yeah. Anyways, we're gonna move on, I think, to the main event, and that is Firepower. Man, I love this book, and this issue is picking up steam. So those of you that have been kind of a little dismayed at the new story arc seeming to be a little slow, that's not the case here. And hopefully you've been reading the book, because we're going to go through the entire issue. That's what we do when we feature it. And we don't want to spoil books for anybody. We want you to read the books yourself and enjoy them and come here and geek out with us and spread the love, if you will. I'm trying to get, there we go, for Skip. Jimmy says this is where I have to dip because he doesn't want spoilers, because Jimmy doesn't want to buy the singles. He is a trade waiter.
He's a traitor.
Filthy trade waiter. I say that in jest, but it is funny. Real fans buy floppies.
Yeah, Jimmy, be a real fan. Buy floppies. That's so funny because I feel like that's the only thing that I'm missing from my Firepower collection is just actually getting the floppies, because the only trade that I have, of course, is the Prelude. Which, gosh, that's still like as good as this book has been, and I love where this book has taken us, and I love where it's going. But man, that Prelude was so dang good and so dang fun.
Yes, you're not wrong. Like it still amazes me that the trade was written kind of for the same reason that Lucas did the prequels. Like, originally when he did the Star Wars trilogy, like, he did an outline for the prequels, not because he ever thought he would make them, but he just wanted to sort of, like, have that story there so it would make the story he told feel more real and have more depth. You know, like Ben Kenobi referring to the Clone Wars and different things, because he did a little outline of, like, what had happened before. And it was a good thing. I think it helped the movie. And as my understanding was that the series we got, like, he did the prequel is more of just sort of like, yeah, let's just tell you how we got here. Like, and that's like the best part, you know? It's weird to me. So, let me read the, I can't. Talking, it's like jumping and chewing bubblegum, or what's that? Tap your head, chew bubblegum. I'm not good at doing the talking and navigating through windows. But let me, for those of you who haven't been following along or forgot what happened last month, previously on Firepower. Although Haley might be able to wield the firepower, she can't yet control it. When the Serpent's Omen struck again, Haley was powerless to stop the attack. Luckily, Ling Zan had been anticipating this danger and revealed herself to save Kelly, Haley, and Doug. Ling's presence at the Johnson home meant that she wasn't with the Scorched Earth clan, where the reach of the Serpent's Omen grows, and no one, not even the mighty Chen Zul, is safe.
And we are right back into it. So we're at the scene where Chen Zul, he's been bitten by one of the snakes of the Serpent's Omen, or I guess the serpent of the Serpent's Omen, and his right-hand man has discovered it and, tries to make his way out of the room to try to find help. But he realizes that it wasn't just Chen Zul that had gotten bitten. It is everybody on the island. And as he's looking around, Chen Zul jumps out, lets him know the power is awakened and it grows. And then his right-hand man gets his snake bite too, and the power of the Serpent's Omen is awakened inside of him. I really appreciated how we got right back to the story immediately, Ash. What'd you think about that scene?
It's this, like what you said, like right into the story. It's just no waiting around. We've had 2 issues of sort of like, hey, we're sitting around the dinner table and having this is back to the main plot, the big action that was been teased, and we're jumping right into it. So I'm hooked. This is a good way to hook the beginning of the issue.
Yeah, great way to hook it. And I mean, with this many people joining the Serpent's Omen now, we're seeing really what the new, or at least one of the new hurdles is going to be for Owen's family, as well as whatever any of his allies that haven't gotten the bite yet. But from that, we jump back over to the Johnson household. Of course, they left off with Kelly finding out that Ling Zan is alive. Of course, she's reading it. Kelly, Owen's wife, is reading everybody the riot act right now, starting to get some answers from everyone. And she orders the kids and Ling Zan inside and has to have it out with Owen. It is a nice, cool little touch that Haley, they're kids and they know that there's a serious situation, but Haley breaks the ice with, something that she's interested in. Her dad's past. She's like, oh, you knew my dad when he was young, right? But within that, Kelly opens up to Owen and about her, not only her insecurities but also her securities, knowing the strength of their relationship and what Owen wouldn't do and that he wouldn't abandon his family and leave, but also at the same time letting Owen know, based off the fact that you had an opportunity to tell me that you found out that she was still alive and you didn't, and that is what shakes me a little bit. So, after Owen, apologizing and letting her know, I didn't know the right way to tell you, and I'm realizing now there was no right way to tell you. I just needed to tell you and do the right thing, even though there's not a right way to do that. And they were able to, come together there, kind of mend and repair the relationship. And they, where they started off, what felt like almost, worlds apart, or at least there was a chasm that had been brought together. And so, what did you think about that that little mini scene there, that little family moment, Ash?
And this is something I've been worried about, we talked about for several issues. Like I'm seeing it coming, the whole love triangle thing. But I think the way Kirkman handled it, kind of made me feel better. Like I feel like he at least, I could be wrong. He could make a big U-turn at any time, but I feel like he kind of signified here, like, there isn't going to be really like a love triangle thing. Like, we're going to see Kelly being, the stereotypical jealous woman, right? Like, having that, or not say jealous, insecure. That's maybe a better way to put it. Like, she has her insecurities, like, she makes some comments about, like, it's your ex-girlfriend and she's gorgeous, like type of, and it's just like those are all the insecurities. And she makes some comments about like how, I know you're faithful, I know you're gonna be good, but he just doesn't, like the typical man, doesn't have the magic words to say. He's just being truthful, and then that bothers her. It not just reality of life, I guess. I don't know how much the comic's gonna focus on this. I hope it's not a big deal. I hope that this is just Kirkman getting around it. We'll have to wait and see. Like, if there's like 5 issues from now, there's like a moment where, Owen and Ling-Zhan are together, and it's like, I don't see it going that way. So I'm hopeful. I really like the fact that Owen is a strong father and a husband, and he's just being truthful. The fact that he is so honest as a man, I take that to be like, yeah, you don't got anything to worry about, because he's just putting it all out there. Even if it does hurt your feelings or makes you insecure, he's being transparent. And that's, from a guy's standpoint, it's like he's a straight shooter. So cool. Like, if you had anything to worry about, would be honestly if he was like keeping things, or just, floating your boat and saying the things you want to hear. And, I don't want to get man versus woman discussion here, but I think just psychologically, I think men and women just approach things from different angles. And sometimes women just want to hear the good thing. They want to feel like, do I look fat in this dress? It's like, the answer is no. The answer is always no, right? But it's like, guys sometimes just they appreciate the straight shooting, the transparency. Anyways, I just like the way Kirkman handled it here. So that's all I have to say. Probably said too much.
I think Kirkman did handle it very well, especially how, I felt like there was some very good honesty on both sides, about what bothered them and what could have been done better. And ultimately it was very organic that they were able to overcome it all and like come back together as a family. So I think that part was really good. If we're going inside now, and both Owen and Kelly are back inside with everyone. There's some very specific details here, Ash, that I'm kind of going to leave for you, but I'm just going to go over the scene. They're back in there, and Kelly's just trying to figure out from Ling Zan, like, hey, this is what's been plaguing my family, attacking them. Like, what do you know about the Serpent's Omen? Ling Zan, talks a little bit about what she knows of the older text and what it may have referenced regarding dragons and serpents. And we had a little conversation about that at the end of one of our last things. So I'll leave that one. I won't say too much about it now. But after, Ling Zan tells Kelly what she does know about all of it, and Ling Zan admits as well, she's like, this has to all be connected. It's definitely not a coincidence. Owen does remind, like, hey, I went into the dragon's chamber, and unfortunately there was no dragon there. Although us reading the story do remember that once everyone turned away, we did see some scales within the chamber that Owen was in underneath the water. And Ling Zan just lets them know that, hey, I came here really to warn y'all. It just so happens that, I came in at the right time while you were being attacked. And then Ling Zan gets a phone call. It's one of the people that is on the Scorched Earth clan's island where she's from, but he's on his way there, and he's letting her know, like, hey, I'm calling you because I was calling your dad and trying to get someone on the island, but I couldn't. And of course, that's very suspicious. And sure enough, when the guy gets there, he gets on deck, and there's nothing but snakes awaiting him. And he mentions it over the phone to Ling Zan, and she's like, did you just say snakes? And then all she hears is that dude like writhing in pain, and that's it. So Ling Zan's got to go. Owen is debating, and really stating like that they may have to go with her because at this point, he doesn't know what may be occurring over in the Temple of the Flaming Fist where Master Wei Lun is. What did you think about a little bit what transpired on the inside, Ash, and some of those details about Ling Zan's tattoo and snakes and serpents and dragons?
Well, first of all, there's a couple of word balloons in this story that kind of made me just chuckle a little bit. They're just sort of like, what? Like, and this one here where she's like, oh, this isn't a fire-breathing dragon. Dragons don't breathe fire. That's silly. I was like, wait a minute. We literally live in a world where a dude throws fire from his hands, but it's silly that a dragon would breathe fire. Like, that made me chuckle. And of course, the tattoo totally looks like a dragon breathing fire, but I guess it's the fireball going down his throat. I guess that's how you kill dragons in firepower. It's like, who would have known? Yeah. And then the comment, she also made a comment about, somewhere about that in ancient times, I guess, the dragons were referred to as serpents. I can't remember exactly where she said that, but there was a mention about that, and I was like, that's part of my theory that maybe the dragon is a serpent, and the serpent's omen is tied to the dragon, yada yada yada. And maybe the scales that we saw in the cave was a big giant serpent. We didn't see what it was. We all assumed it was a dragon, and that's one of the things that Kirkman likes to do, and it's a really great sort of mistell, right? Is to reveal a portion of what the reader expects to see, because then they'll devour it up. If they're expecting to see a dragon and you show them some scales, 9 times out of 10 the reader's gonna, aha, the dragon. But that's the perfect way to hide it and have it be something else and surprise them because you've misdirected them. So I'm expecting that to be misdirected. I'm not expecting to see an actual dragon, but maybe that's what Kirkman wants me to think. I don't know. And the other thing that made me chuckle too is when they get the phone call and the guy's like pulling up in the boat and everything, and he's just like, look at all these snakes. Like, it's the whole dock is covered in snakes, and he's just like casually like, hey, since when are all these snakes here? He's just this like feels, and I say this in a good way, it feels very B movie. Like, the way the next scene happens, like, did you say snakes? Ah, you hear over the phone, and she's just holding it. And the whole time I was reading this, I was like, oh man, I want to see this as a movie. Like this would be so much fun. Having a little bit of that cheesy kind of happenstance, the way, you know, cheesy B movies occur, you know, like Snakes on a Plane. So not that I really want to see Firepower be a cheesy B movie, but I don't know, it would be fun. It could set up. The way Kirkman's doing it is very cinematic. And those are the really two things that struck me. What about you? Anything?
I mean, that was it mostly. I mean, with the exception of, you know, of course, one of those word balloons, her talking about how, let's see, I can go back over quick. She says, oh, I went right past it. Here we are. This is Ling Zan talking. She says, not much. In the older text, the dragon was referred to as the serpent. So this all has to be connected. So same thing, like, you know, we had theorized on the last show that we covered Firepower that and you had brought it up, Ash, how, you know, there's not always wings and on dragons within like the like a lot of Asian illustrations of dragons, you know, that they don't have the wings and they are more serpent like. So that literally we come to the next issue and they're talking about that exact thing that you had mentioned, and Maranya also mentioned it as well.
Yep.
So I just love the fact that we took the time to theorize, and y'all are right on top of the pulse of the book. So that feels good.
Yeah, it feels good because even if we're wrong, it feels like the conclusions we're coming to are conclusions that Kirkman wants us to have. Either because that's part of the narrative and that's understanding the story, or because they're purposeful misdirections that he's just like, ah, ha, 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 wait till they find out the truth. Right. But either way, that's good because we're not confused, right? We're kind of coming along mostly all similar ideas, and no one is like, at least no one I'm talking to is coming out with something out of left field. They're like, no, wait, it's obviously totally like this. And you're like, what? You know, like that's good. It's a sign of solid writing that most readers are coming away with very similar ideas. So that makes me feel good about the book too.
Absolutely. So next scene we have Owen and Kelly dropping off Doug and Haley, their kids, over to the grandparents again because they are going. Owen and Kelly and Ling Zan are going to go to the Scorched Earth Temple of the Flaming Fist, where Master Wei Lun is, and warn them because it looks like the Scorched Earth clan has already been taken over by the snakes. So they think naturally the Serpent's Omen may go to Master Wei Lun's location next. And just squaring everything up with the grandparents, there's a moment where Owen is speaking with Haley, and they just have a very tender moment. I think the biggest takeaway from here is Owen is leveling with Haley, and I think what really gets to him, because at first reading the dialogue, the scene I didn't get it. I didn't understand why Owen was so emotional all of a sudden. But then I'm thinking about it. He's getting ready to leave his kids again after he had just fought a really big battle, thinking that would be the end of it and he can focus on his family. So I think that was really the biggest thing, is that, he was just having a tender moment with his daughter and really not wanting to leave them. But also, it's an opportunity for Haley to, mature and take on some more responsibility as well. Saying bye to the grandparents, just, kind of stating the obvious and just saying, hey, like, yeah, son, you got a super weird life, but we love you and we're going to be here for, we're going to be here for you. And, hopefully we're not in too much danger, but luckily, his wife, Kelly's partner, is also going to be looking out for the family as well. And as they are getting ready to board the plane, they're saying bye to the kids, one more family hug, and, Doug not wanting his parents to go, especially his mom, and just saying how scared he is. He's also proud of his parents for going and taking on such a big crazy journey, and then they fly off. Anything outstanding, in kind of those tender moments for you, Ash?
Well, I'm glad that you kind of gave your perspective on this scene here with Owen talking to Haley, because I kind of had the same thing too, where I was like, man, he's getting a little more emotional than I would have expected. But when I hear your perspective and I kind of was going over the scene again, I was like, oh yeah, that actually makes a little bit more sense now. Like he's had a lot of hardship, like his own family's dead, like his mom and dad, right? And then all that struggle to find out who they were, and going through, like, that's what the Prelude graphic novel's about. Then having his own kids now, and then the story we just went through, they had to go all the way to the other side of the world, fight ninjas and all this stuff. And now, just when things were fine and settling down again, 2 issues later, boom, going back, and I got to leave you kids behind this time. And I think it's all things that he's dealt with internally his whole life. And, now he's got this kid, and his kid's feeling her own stresses. And I don't know, it feels a little bit more warranted. And I appreciate that more, because I was like, what's up with the waterworks, man? But I appreciate it. Like, it makes sense. And I like that about Owen. I like that he's, and this is weird to say because I'm usually the Frank Miller super macho, character fan. Like, that's what but I kind of like that Owen is a much more grounded, just everyday kind of Joe. He just wants a normal life, and he just wants to be with his wife and kids. He's not trying to be a hero or, anything like that. It's just the world is coming to him, and he's forced to deal with it. And I like that he's just a good, honest person. Because let's face it, I think comics today are so lacking that type of character. And I love the family. I love the parents, man. When I hear the dad talk, or the grandpa, I hear the guy, that voice actor that did the old man from Up.
Yeah.
That voice, like, that's whose voice I hear, is that gravelly. I just love, you don't worry about us. You run off with your ex-girlfriend and your wife and fight kung fu people. We'll keep the kids safe. Your life is super weird, son. It's like such great dialogue. And I love how he's holding peanut butter. Like, Samney, you're probably not listening, but bravo to these, like, little touches like that just bring me a smile. You could have just had a talking head right there, which, like, again, I'd say about modern comics. So many modern comics would have just had a close-up of his face and a dialogue bubble next to him saying that, and it would have communicated to you what was going on. But this adds so much more personality to the scene, and it's little touches like that make me care more.
Absolutely. It's all of those little things that add up to, this book just feeling so genuine.
Yeah.
So, yeah, gosh, Sam, man, Kirkman and Sam, they have to continue to work together beyond this book, but I hope this book continues on for as long as it can. So as they're taking off to come and warn Master Wei Lun over at the Temple of the Flaming Fist, we travel over there in the next scene, and one of the students on the island lets Master Wei Lun know that Chao Feng is, he's still being possessed, and he's mumbling again. So they go over. Master Wei Lun goes over to take a look at him. And at this point, when he gets there, he's not saying anything at all. Chao Feng is just being almost like a stone statue, like nothing at all. And Master Wei Lun is walking out, and there is another prisoner there that says something very specific. She says, "No, fool. He's worried about what he's waiting for, and let me add, he should be." So. And she's speaking to the student of the temple that had asked Master Wayland, is it better that he's not rambling and just kind of being, like a statue? And so there's a little foreshadowing right there. Uh, of course, Wei Lun, making his little wisecracks about the lady that just spoke to him. But bam, as soon as he walks out of the temple, Snake goes straight for him. He dodges it, Matrix style, like Neo style.
Serious.
Kicks that thing back. We get some action scenes where the serpent is like sliding around Wei Lun's, like sliding up his staff that he uses to walk and also fight with. He shims it off, shakes it, throws it against the wall, jumps over the wall, lets his students know that something's going on, and one of them yells, "Master, look out!" And the snake is thrown right at one of his students, and he is instantly possessed. But Wei Lun is able to grab it, I guess, before some of the venom gets too deep in him to do a full possession, and then just bites the snake and just like tears his head off, Ozzy Osbourne style, and just spits it on the ground. And from there, they're just like, they both just kind of come to a realization that things are getting deep, things are getting dangerous again. These snakes here, and right after they think that is the most that they have to worry about, we get a big fat panel of a blimp in the sky coming right over the temple, and here comes Master Wei Lun talking about it. Not again. And that is where the issue ends.
Yeah, so this little scene with the snake here at the end was kind of nice because it brought back, the issue started with a bunch of action, or at least tense moments. Then it had a bunch of like downtime with everything, and then it finished nicely at that same pace with the snake. And I liked that he did. I liked that he like threw the snake at his own student. So that's like the only way he could catch it, right? Like to have it like bite on someone else so that he could grab it and then bite its head off.
Yeah.
I don't know what to think about that. Like using your student, like here. And then also I'm kind of wondering, what was this student saying? Because obviously he's like speaking in the serpent's omen voice, right? We may not have you, but this will, and then that's it. Like, he was about to say something, and we only got a teaser of that. So I'm wondering what that was, if it was important or what. And, this is all foreshadowing of things are coming. And, of course, at the very last page, it's like, oh, man, not again. Just, and, and now we know Owen and his wife and Ling Zan are on the way. And we're going to get into some big things and finding out what's going on with this Serpent's Omen. And I'm very excited to be on the ride. I love this book. Even when this book is downtime, I just enjoy it because I like these characters so much. Literally these characters could just sit around and be eating, just eating coffee cakes and whatever, like having a barbecue outside. I would enjoy the book because I'm so now invested in these characters, and Kirkman's done such a good job fleshing them out. Not that I want that book to be that way, and if it went on, obviously eventually I'd get upset, but the point is when you make books, when you make characters that people care about, you can get away with so much more. And then when you put them in hair-raising situations, it makes them just that much more hair-raising, because it's you don't need the writer to tell you, hey, this is a suspenseful part, pay attention. Like you're in on it, you're gripped. So I love this book. I just, every time it comes out, it may not be my favorite book, of the week, but it's always one of the ones I look forward to reading the most. I don't sit on this book. I don't fall behind on Firepower. Well, partly because I got a show to do, but like even my favorite book, which was Ascender, I let relax for like 4 issues. And it's not because I don't love the book or I'm not into it. Sometimes the way the story is written, it's hard to digest in pieces. Like, but the way this book is written, I can't wait around. Like, Which is why I question. I know people like Jimmy, I think Venkman also reads this in the trades, and I'm like, why do you read this in the trade? Like, I just don't understand. Like, but each their own. You have any other final thoughts?
Yeah, it's gonna be. I mean, having the Scorched Earth clan visit the island again with their blimps, but this time, you know, I guess driven by snakes on a blimp. Why are all these mother effing snakes on this mother effing blimp? I couldn't get away with not saying it right.
Right.
That would have been the real crime, not the cheesiest of the line, but not going ahead and just saying it.
Dude, I feel like he's got to like just do it, Kirkman. Like, we give you permission. Make that line happen somewhere.
Please, Kirkman. Please, we give you permission. We're begging you. Like, do not deprive us. Just freaking do it. But really, man, I want to see what the conflict looks like this time around because, okay, we know that Kelly threw the fireball, so she has the firepower. We know Owen has the firepower. But for only one person having the firepower, like, he'd have to be doing more than just throwing fireballs. He'd have to be like basically a flamethrower if he's gonna, be throwing fire down the throats of these serpents, like Ling Zan's tattoo, kind of alluded to. So the only other person that possesses the firepower is at home. They know that Owen has it. No one else knows that Kelly has it except for their family.
Kaylee.
Excuse me. Thank you. Haley.
Haley.
Kelly
yeah,
and Haley.
I was wrong too.
Haley is the daughter. Kelly is the mother. Haley has the firepower, but she can't harness it yet, and she's back at home.
Right.
So in my mind, she has to show up, and she has to wield it at some point in time. I do just hope that we get a little bit more of a training session, or maybe even. Do you remember Owen's wife Kelly's partner's name?
Reggie.
Maybe because Reggie was a student of Master Wei Lun, Reggie can be helping her, lead her through some sort of training that, at least gives her a little more, a few more tools to harness it, and then maybe she can get there and then tap into it in time to help her father, because just one person having the firepower, it can't be enough for all of those snakes and all those people possessed.
Yeah. We'll see. I mean, I'm presume there's other ways to deal with the snakes, because I think Ling Zan, didn't she kill the snakes the first time they ran into him?
Did she?
I can't remember. I thought she did. But of course, they didn't deal with huge numbers.
But because it was that one, the original Serpent's Omen lady. They ended up scurrying away from her.
So I have my suspicions. I really think that the firepower is a part of the bloodline, and that's why no one else can learn it. So if I'm correct, that means Kelly will never learn it, but the two kids will. That's my theory. And I don't know. I'm hoping this book goes on for a long, long time. I don't want to see it just be like a couple of arcs and then it's over. So even though this is the big story of the moment, I'm hoping that there's many, many more to go down, down the line. If I'm correct in my theory, that means, what's the boy's name? It's Haley and Doug. Doug probably wouldn't, because he's a couple years younger, at least 1 or 2 years younger.
Yeah.
So he wouldn't get the firepower right away. And Kirkman does like to take his time on things. He doesn't like to rush, which I appreciate. So if Kelly starts now, Haley, maybe Doug starts manifesting a power 20 issues from now, or however long, I don't know. He could do some time jumps, but that would be my way of seeing the lineage, or the expanding. But I don't expect there are going to be too many people, even if I'm wrong, too many people using the firepower. I think that would diminish its sense of wonder.
Yeah, it definitely would, or at least if it was, if not that I could see it growing in the number of people that can use it, but that would have to be like the climax of the story. That'd have to be something towards the end, because if you do it and then if so many people do it and then the story continues on, then you're right. Now you're continuing the story at a point where it's not that special anymore. If you end the story like that, then that's fine, because like the story ends, it moves on from there. But I mean, there's so many ways that it could be done. The only people that really know are Kirkman and Samney, so and us who don't know, this is a hell of a journey to find out what it will be and how it will be resolved. So I hope that all of y'all who are listening, that are watching, continue to join us on this journey as we go through this book, and hang out with the Johnson family as they deal with all these mother effing snakes and their mother effing garden.
Right. I always like to read the Roast Office. I love letters pages, and it really does extend the life of a comic book. I'm not going to read the letters page here on air or anything, but I find it sometimes you can glean some little tidbits of information that help you to speculate or theory craft. One of the things I noticed on this particular issue is he's doing the same thing that he did with Invincible, where he by the way, Kirkman's the dark black bold. That's Kirkman. And he says, I will say, starting with the next issue, we are kicking off the biggest, craziest events that have transpired in the series since we all debuted. And that's not exaggerating, I promise. This is the arc we've been building the entire series, so get ready for awesome. Speaking of awesome, how about we answer mail? So he did this thing in Invincible where he would basically just hype the crap out of the next issue and be like, this is what we built toward. And he did it for like 6 or 7 issues before anyone even called him on it. And he was like, I was waiting. I kept doing this, and like everyone was like, okay, whatever. Like no one said anything. And so I think that's funny to see it again. I wonder if anyone's going to call him or he's going to keep doing it. I'm going to look every issue to see if he keeps doing it, because that's what's funny. But he mentioned down lower, because someone asked him about like, how's this different than doing the zombie apocalypse and blah, blah. And he says, it's less draining on me emotionally, I suppose. When the book is more fun, the job is more fun. I guess I could say a fair amount of work goes into curbing my instincts, developed over long years, or writing darker work. Oh yeah, I can't do that. It's way too violent. But you'll see in upcoming issues, things get a bit darker as we go. And so I found that to be interesting. He comments a little bit more later on about that too. So it sounds like we could be seeing Firepower stray away from the all happy good times of the family at home and starting to see some dark times. What do you think about that possibility?
I can absolutely see it happening, and I think at this point, since we had, since they got back home, we had some issues that were a lot of family stuff going on, and then kind of ramping back up to this, and then a lot of the negative things that were occurring were happening on the island where the Scorched Earth clan was, and of course within the Temple of the Flaming Fist with a snake getting on there, much earlier, and then Chao Fang, being bitten. I think at this point in time, it has to finally trickle back to the family. So there has to be some negative aspects that they've, obviously the serpents, were trying to attack them as well, and Haley was the main one that they were going for, and it's even more obvious why they were going for Haley now after seeing Ling Zan's tattoo and realizing that's supposed to be fireball going down the throat of the serpent. They want to eliminate the person who has the firepower that is the weakest link. So yeah, it's about the time that things kind of get tense, get a little dark and whatnot again. And we have Wei Lun, so it's not like there's not going to be any levity at all, because Wei Lun, whether he's saying something funny or it's like a physical humor or like visual humor, there's going to be some of those points. But I'm I think we're all well prepared, and it's been earned that there's going to be some darker times within the book going forward for a little while.
Doug Johnson in the chat says something really that's got my brain spinning. He says, Owen's father and or mother truly dead, or might they still be alive? And I'm like, oh man, I think someone might be onto something. What if they didn't die? What if they're the serpent's omen?
Right?
Like, what if they're kind of the heads, or they're just possessed? You know, the snake thing. Like, we thought they were dead. I've been theorizing this whole time that the serpent and the dragon are connected somehow. Like the serpent is a reference of the dragon, just in a different way. I've also been theorizing that Owen can throw fire because somehow he's related to the dragon, like, you know, using the metaphorical sense of, this is especially common in Chinese, Asian culture, of like someone who's really like Bruce Lee was called the dragon, right? Like, to have that supreme martial spirit inside you is to be the dragon. They kind of do a reference in the Shang-Chi movie about Shang-Chi having the heart of the dragon, sort of things like that too. But that's not uncommon. So I'm like, well, what if the dragon is not a literal thing, but a figurative thing in that sense, and the dragon is actually Owen. And we've talked about that before, but then connecting all that, just what if the reason Owen's connection to the serpents or the dragon is because he's connected to the serpents, and then the parent, like, there's like this huge web that my brain is just going off in all these different directions and trying to imagine the possibilities. Yeah. And then thinking about what Kirkman just said about we're going down the dark path, like, what if Owen has to kill his real parents? That would be dark.
Yeah, real dark.
Oh, I found out you're alive. Now I have to kill you. Oh.
Yep.
Yikes.
Oh, that would be tough. But I mean, yeah, it could totally make sense if they came together and they gave birth to the very thing that could, take away everything that they've built together and their lives. And, here comes along someone who, who took the baby away because they understood the importance of the baby, to put the baby in a safer position, or again, just to take the baby away to later utilize the baby because they're like, oh, we gave birth to the thing that can destroy us. Let's train it to, work for us. All of those things are in place, and it can go either one of those ways. All of that, while I still want to see eventually what may happen with Master Shaw, who's still in that stone form, on the Temple of the Flaming Fist. So many things have been set up and are in place to really give us some interesting reveals.
I still suspect, my prevailing theory is that Shaw is a descendant of Owen somehow, like, and that the return, the prophesized return thingamabob is not a literal, it's a figurative return, and Owen represents that. That's my takeaway. I could totally be wrong. We could totally see Shaw turn into flesh. However, another thing in that roast office letters page was, there was a mention where Kirkman does say that he's trying to keep this series grounded, because someone had asked the question, I guess in Invincible, like Savage Dragon and Spawn made an appearance, and someone asked like, oh, is there any chance we could see crossovers like in the future? And then he responds, no, this is a much more grounded series. We're not going to see like Spawn appear. And I'm like, you do realize you've got like dragons and people throwing fire from their hands. Like, how grounded is this? Like, like Walking Dead is grounded. This is not really, and I for one, like, I want to see more mysticism. I want to see, the fantastic. But I guess we'll just trust the author in their vision.
Absolutely. Best thing to do.
So I guess that'll wrap up the show. You guys, thank you for joining us, and everyone that's listening. If you're listening to after the fact, I appreciate you also very much. Anyone who's following, we are trying to work hard to keep the show tighter. I know I'm the wordy one. It's not Skip's fault. But I am trying to bring it down. That's why we're just doing one issue instead of two. We are also experimenting with other things, like talking about other comics that, as we're trimming the fat, we're also adding fat, so that doesn't help. But we're going to get it down. Please leave your feedback in the comments, in the YouTube comments, or on Discord. You can reach me on Twitter, however else. Hearing your feedback of what you like, what works for you, what are the parts that entertain you the most, what are the parts you'd want to throw away, that helps, because Skip and I talk about the things we want to talk about, but we don't necessarily know what resonates with you guys as much. So having that definitely is something we want to hear. So please don't be afraid. Please join us on a Discord. Information is in the comments or the description box of the YouTube thing below. You can find the links there. You can reach out to me on Twitter if you have any questions. Skip is also on Twitter. On the thumbnail, both of our Twitter addresses. Just, come talk to us about comics. We love talking about comics. I can be very opinionated sometimes, so if I come off that way, I don't mean any harm. I'm an opinionated person. I try not to really judge anyone else, and I know that I'm not the end all be all. Comics have different stuff for different people. Skip, do you have any final thoughts you want to say? I'll let you wrap it up and give the good night.
We always appreciate everyone tuning in, whether you can join us live or whether it's after the fact on YouTube and even via the podcast. So we appreciate that. And with that, thanks for coming out. God bless you. Good night.